I've journaled every day for the past 2 years and it's completely changed my life. But most people struggle to build a journaling habit that's consistent and therefore never see the benefits it has to offer. So in today's video, I'm sharing the exact strategies I use to make journaling an automatic part of my day so you can build a habit that lasts. Recently, I was re-listening to Atomic Habits by James Clear and I couldn't help but think, this guy just nailed the book. It's absolutely the exact same strategies I use to build all my healthy habits, including journaling. So what I want to do is give you a high-level overview of the big concept in the book, and then go into the specific tactics and strategies that I use for journaling specifically. Now, the central concept in Atomic Habits is what James Clear calls the habit loop, and it's a 4-step cycle that starts off with a cue. So we encounter a cue, which triggers a craving. The craving motivates a response, and the response earns a reward. This reward then reinforces the cue so that the next time we come across that same information or cue, it restarts the cycle, reinforcing the behavior over time. And he argues, and a lot of researchers have argued, that this is kind of the fundamental basis of all human behavior. So this loop is what Clear uses to lay out his next big idea in the book, which is the 4 laws of behavior change. And each law taps into one of these steps here and kind of hacks into it to make building a habit easier and more automatic and a more natural part of your day. So let's talk about journaling specifically now and go into each law of human behavior change so that we can build a journaling habit that lasts. The first law of behavior change is to make it obvious. And this taps into the cue phase. What we're trying to do is make cues more obvious and present in the environment. So the first tactic is something Clear calls habit stacking. This is where we use an existing habit as a cue for a new habit that we're trying to build. To do this, pair journaling with habits that you're already doing. For me, I always have a cup of coffee in the morning, so the best way to build a journaling habit when I was first getting started was to use making coffee as the cue to get out my notebook and start journaling. Another habit that I had that I paired journaling with was my reading habit. So anytime I would read a book, I would always finish it by writing a little bit in my journal. I would either take notes or just journal freely about the ideas that I had. So whenever I would make coffee or whenever I would read a book, I was always being cued and reminded to grab a notebook and start writing things down. You could also pair this with a negative habit. So for instance, when I was trying to reduce my screen time, I had this compulsion to always check my phone. And so what I started doing was carrying a pocket notebook with me. And whenever I was cued to check my phone, whenever I had that compulsion, I used that as a reminder to pull out my pocket notebook instead. So I was able to eventually replace the phone checking with journaling. Now the second tactic is called an implementation intention plan, or basically just setting an intention and then creating some sort of action plan for doing the thing. Studies have shown you're much more likely to follow through on a behavior if you write down your intention to and a plan to go along with it. So be specific about the habit that you're going to be doing, when and where you're going to do the habit, and what you might do if an obstacle occurs. For instance, an implementation intention plan might sound something like, I will journal every morning at 7:30 a.m. while I brew my morning cup of coffee. And if I forget to do that, I will journal on my lunch break instead. The third tactic is to plan your environment, and this just means making cues highly visible around you. For instance, I leave this orange Leuchtturm journal around the house everywhere I go. I kind of bring it with me from room to room. I have small pocket notebooks next to the books that I read. I have pocket notebooks in my gym so I can log workouts. I have notebooks on my desk. I kind of just have notebooks everywhere so that any room I enter, there is a notebook that I can open up and start writing in. Having notebooks around the house and everywhere I go just means that journaling becomes the obvious choice. Another habit that's had a massive impact on me is lifelong learning. I'm always excited to try new things, which is why I'm thrilled to share that today's video is sponsored by Skillshare. I've never been great at the traditional classroom model. I've always preferred to learn at my own pace, and that's exactly what Skillshare offers. Hundreds of classes that you could take on your own schedule. Recently, I got interested in traditional block printing techniques and decided to try my hand at lino cut. Thanks to Stevie Biffin's introduction to printmaking class on Skillshare, I was able to make my very first lino cut print. One of the most confusing things about relief printing is that things print out in reverse, so I couldn't really figure out how to get words to print out correctly. Luckily, Stevie explained it in a way that actually made sense to me, so now I can carve with the confidence knowing that it's going to turn out how I actually imagine it will. Skillshare has a wide range of classes for just about any creative interest you could think of: photography, graphic design, illustration, video editing, writing, journaling, and even traditional crafts like leatherworking and bookbinding. And what's really cool is you learn directly from talented professionals who know their craft inside and out. The first 500 people to use the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So if you've been thinking about picking up a new creative hobby or just want to learn something new, I highly recommend giving Skillshare a shot. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Let's get back into building a journaling habit. The second law of behavior change is to make it attractive, and this taps into the craving phase of the habit loop. The first tactic is something called temptation bundling, and this just means doing the thing that you have to do, so this habit you're trying to build is something that you already like and enjoy doing. Now, this is kind of a weird one because I genuinely enjoy journaling. I always feel a sense of satisfaction afterwards. So I do want to do it, but to make it more appealing at first, to build that habit when maybe it's not so gratifying in the beginning, you can pair it with things that you enjoy. So coffee or music, or maybe sitting in a cafe where you're in an environment and you feel like nice and cozy, and that can make it more enjoyable. Maybe you already wanted to go to the cafe and now you're bundling that temptation, that desire to go there with the new habit that you're trying to build, which is journaling. I think this is a big reason why people who do artistic journaling or like collage journaling or really fancy bullet journals, I think that's a really cool thing for those people that are interested in that, because they already want to do the art and that's something that they already have a desire for. And if they could pair it with this new habit of journaling, it just makes the overall experience more enjoyable for them. The second tactic is to find a group, a community of some sort where the behavior is normalized. Now, I'm not in an actual journaling community, but I do have this YouTube channel and I have my newsletter where I go in depth on journaling techniques, and that creates some sort of community and space for us to nerd out over notebooks and journaling together. This normalizes the behavior for me. I'm much more likely to journal because it's normal in the community that I'm speaking with. And it also normalizes it for you because you see other people doing it and it makes more sense for you to do it. If you could find an actual community or a group in your local area or some friends that might want to start like a journaling club with you, that's a great way to kind of reinforce each other's behavior. And if a community sounds like something that you're interested in, just let me know, and I'll take it into consideration. It'd be kind of cool to have a place for us to like geek out over this stuff. The third tactic is to focus on the positive aspects. It's no secret that journaling has a lot of mental health benefits. Anybody who's done it for a long time can attest to that. I know for me personally, it's substantially reduced my time spent on my phone and just being distracted and unintentional with my life. It's helped me reach goals, learn new things better. It helps me with memorizing information. Then there are specific journaling techniques like gratitude journaling, where you're actively finding things to be grateful for, things that you might be overlooking, and dwelling on the positive aspects of that. And this on its own has its own positive, like, emotional benefits. So again, to make journaling more appealing, to make it more attractive, just focus on some of those positive benefits. Maybe even write out like a pros cons list, and you're gonna find that con list pretty small and that pro list pretty large. The third law of behavior change is to make it easy, and this taps into the response phase of the cycle. The first tactic in making it easy is the 2-minute rule, and this is just setting the bar to the absolute minimum. Like, what's the smallest version of the habit you could do to start to build the habit? Now, it's really easy when building new habits to set the bar unrealistically high, especially with things like journaling, where you hear about people even like me, where, you know, I've been journaling every day for 2 years, and you think, wow, that's amazing, I wish I could do that. The thing is I start really small, and also my bar for journaling really low. You might be surprised at how low that bar is. It's not like I'm writing page after page every day. Sometimes it's just a single sentence, and sometimes that sentence isn't even my own words. Sometimes I'll just write down a quote in a pocket notebook, and I'll count that as journaling, and the streak gets to stay alive. Because that is the bare minimum for journaling. It's just writing down thoughts, thinking on paper, and it doesn't matter if it's one sentence, one word, or if it's 10 pages. It's up to you. There's no journaling committee that's going to judge you for writing less than a couple pages every day. So just feel free to set that bar low so that you're more likely to meet those expectations. You can keep that streak alive, and you can actually start to build some momentum and get to the point where you are journaling every day for months and maybe even years at a time. The second tactic is to prepare beforehand. So get everything ready and in place to simplify action. Now, this is an easy one because all you need for journaling is a pen and a notebook. I already mentioned this earlier, but I always bring with me a pocket notebook and a pen everywhere I go so that I could journal literally anywhere. I could be at a restaurant, a cafe, I could be waiting in line. wherever I am, I can journal. Then I have my Lloyd term that I usually bring around with me, and I always have a pencil strapped to it so I can draw in case I feel like doing that. Then there are little books like this, like a 1 line a day journal, where you just write a 1-line journal entry one day, each day over the course of 5 years or whatever, and it creates a cool little memory book. But you could get like a templated journal that has predetermined like questions, prompts, or whatever, spaces for you to fill out. And that makes it really easy to simplify journaling as well, because then you're not thinking about what do I write. You just have a prompt to go off of, or whatever it is that you want to use. All these different things just make jumping into journaling really easy to do. The third tactic is to automate, and that's to use technology to make the behavior automatic. Now, for things like journaling, where we're talking about a practice of intention and focus and mindfulness and solitude practice, using technology is just not really something that I would recommend. I think it's much better to go analog, use an actual physical notebook to write things down. This just helps avoid some of the digital distractions that are very easy to fall prey to. I'm just saying from personal experience, I've never found journaling on a phone to be very helpful, and even things like reminders, they can be useful to remind you to journal, but oftentimes when I get a reminder, it's just a gateway to all the other apps on my phone, right? It's like, oh, well, there's a notification, there's a text, there's an email to check. So I would be wary about using technology for this, but you know, to each their own. If you don't have that problem, then go for it, do your thing. All right, so now we're getting into law number 4, which is to make it satisfying. And this taps into the reward phase. And the first tactic is to have an immediate reward, something that immediately reinforces the behavior once you do it. I know when you're first building a habit, it's not always so enjoyable and you might not see the point of it at first. So that helps to reinforce your behavior in the beginning to make you more likely to do it. Now, for everybody, this is gonna be different. I know for me personally, I used to use video game time as a reward for journaling and long writing sessions, because I had a sense of, okay, I had this plan, I stuck to the plan, now I'm gonna reward myself with a little bit of leisure time. I would delay that gratification, journal first, and then reward myself with it, and it made both experiences more enjoyable. You might be able to use like a tasty drink as a reward, or a little piece of chocolate or something, or in my case, I oftentimes just grab another cup of coffee, because apparently you can't build a habit without a coffee addiction. The second tactic is to track habits visually, and I cannot express enough how much of a game changer this specific tactic is. If there was one tactic I would say, please do this, it's this one. This one works. There's just something instinctually satisfying about seeing progress made visual, so seeing a bar fill up and knowing that you're getting closer to a goal, or at least like making some sort of progress from where you started. And a habit tracker is really great at this because it creates a streak across the page of all the days that you've journaled. But the really cool thing about journaling is that the medium itself is rewarding and creates a sense of progress. Because when you get a notebook, it's empty and the pages are blank. And as you fill the pages, you can start to flip through them. You can start to flip through the pages and see how many you filled up. Even just on a minute by minute basis, you get to see a blank page, word after word start to appear. And it's like magic. You're like taking this thing in your head and you're filling it onto the page, and right before your eyes, you're seeing progress happen. And like, even just filling these little tiny pocket notebooks is such a satisfying feeling. I mean, you finish one of these little bad boys and you're hooked. You're like, I'm gonna buy 20 of these things. I'm gonna fill them all. Tactic 3 is going to be don't break the chain. Just do your best to keep the streak alive. Now, if you keep the bar low, like we talked about earlier, and you track progress visually, this shouldn't be too hard to do. I mean, keeping a streak alive isn't actually as hard as you think, but I know life happens. It's happened to me. There's gonna be a day where maybe you just forget, or something comes up, you don't get to it, whatever. There might even be 2 days where you don't get to it. And that might be cause for concern, but again, it's not a big deal. You want to be concerned at day 3 though. If you miss 3 days in a row, then it's becoming a habit not to do the thing. And that's when you really want to take stock and really try to adjust the behavior. So that's my rule. I don't miss 3 days in a row. And if I do, then I really need to sit down and reconsider what's going on. Like, why is this happening? What can I do to correct the behavior and start to get back on track? And if you do fall off track and maybe you had a journaling habit, it's died off and you're trying to figure out how to get back into it, you're kind of beating yourself up over it and you don't really know what to do, not a big deal. Take a breath and just incorporate some of these tactics that we've talked about today. You don't even have to incorporate all of them. Just a few of them will be enough to start to generate momentum. Hopefully these tactics will be helpful for you. I know they've been immensely helpful for me. It's how I've been able to journal every day for the past few years. So let me know which ones worked for you or which ones didn't, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And if you're wondering, well, where do I start? How do I write? What should I journal about? I got you. Check out this video right over here where I share 10 different journaling techniques to get started off.